Hello everyone, and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. We begin today with a rundown of the basics for anyone who is new to the cattle business or those who may just want a little refresher. We caught up with our Extension beef cattle specialist, Dave Lohman.
There are a lot of things to consider. I would probably start with the land base. And so they're either going to, be thinking about land that they maybe inherited or purchased, or considering leasing. And so forage production on the land base, and then designing a cattle operation that takes good care of the land, good grazing management and so on is an important factor. Forage production varies tremendously throughout the state. And so an estimation of how much forage that land base can produce is really kind of the place they need to begin. And once they have an idea of that, then they can calculate a proper stocking rate and then think about, well, do I want to feed hay 3 months out of the year, 1 month out of the year? And of course, that decision will also influence the year-round stocking rate also. But, after they've worked through those, they should be able to come up with a reasonable number of animals that they might consider purchasing. That's probably the place to begin.
In terms of breeding, what should people keep in mind, and how much time and expense they really want to invest?
Well, the breeding, if you're talking about a cow-calf production system, that is very important and would be one of the first considerations. Because, if you're going to keep cows for a number of years, they need to be bred every year or become pregnant every year, so they produce a calf, obviously. And so that means you're either going to purchase a bull or more than one bull, or use more advanced breeding technology like artificial insemination. Most people just entering the industry are probably not going to be comfortable right off the bat with something like artificial insemination, synchronization that goes with it, and all those, really kind of Cadillac programs. So a mature bull can handle anywhere between 20 and 40 cows. So if you only have 5 or 10 cows, then that really becomes a consideration, because you've got one 1,700 to 2,200 pound animal that you have to keep around on the place either year round if you purchase that bull, or you have to go work something out to lease a bull during the 60-day or so breeding season. So that's a pretty important consideration, and the bull can eat up a big chunk of your grazing resources if you have to keep him on the place with the cows year round.
And that leads us to our next question, which is forage considerations, which, as you mentioned, vary greatly across the state. Yeah,
they vary. So in eastern Oklahoma, you might be talking about a stocking rate of, say, 4 or 5 acres per animal, cow-calf pair. In western Oklahoma, you could be talking about 25 acres per cow-calf pair. And so it does vary greatly. Maybe a good way to begin estimate that is if you have historical information available somewhere from a hay meadow in the property or neighboring properties, and find out about how much hay is produced each year. But if you know how much hay is produced per acre, you can multiply it times the weight of the hay, then you'd have a very good idea of an approximate amount of forage production.
And then last but not least, overall herd health.
Well, that would be the other thing that I would be thinking about before I entered the industry. People need to generate a good relationship with a veterinarian. Client-patient relationship is what they call that. And you go meet your local veterinarian, sit down with them, ask them, what are your recommendations for a good preventative herd health program in this area? And they'll help you structure, a planned program that you can carry out throughout the year. And the nice thing about that is it should also add value to your cattle come market time.
And for anybody who wants to study this more, there's classes available through the Extension office?
A lot of information available through the Extension county offices in particular. One example is the Master Cattleman Program. That is really kind of designed for people that are entering the industry. I mean, there are more experienced participants in that program too, but you know, that Master Cattleman Program is organized out of the county offices. It's an investment in time, pretty substantial investment in time, but well worth it for especially people who are interested in getting into the cattle business.
Dividends down the road for sure.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Dave, thanks a lot. And for more information on the Master Cattleman Program that is available through the Cooperative Extension Service, go to sunup.okstate.edu.
Last week, we visited with you about putting together a calving kit. And of course, one of the key ingredients in that calving kit are the obstetrical chains. Those things that we're going to use to put around the baby calf's legs in order to help assist that calf into the new world and let that mother get through the calving process with as much ease as possible. Putting those chains on correctly, I think, is very, very important in this delivery process. If you'll take a look at this particular picture that we have showing the proper placement of the obstetrical chains, I want you to note that they have the pressure points in two different areas. And that way we don't have all of the pressure, the weight being applied in just one area on that baby calf's legs. Start by putting a loop of the chain right above the ankle or the fetlock. Then bring the chain over the top to where we can then have a half hitch right above the baby calf's hooves. As we finish that half hitch, make sure that the chain is coming out over the top of the toes rather than underneath. And that's because if those legs actually are still inside the cow, or they might actually be protracted back up into the cow during this delivery process, that as we're applying pressure, that we'll have those chains pulling that real sharp baby calf's hooves away from the soft tissue of the mother cow. I think if we'll take time and put those chains on correctly before we actually start the pulling process, we'll end up then with a better chance of having a healthy, sound cow after the delivery process, as well as a healthy baby calf. Keep this in mind, and if you'd like to learn a little more about working with these cows and heifers at calving time, I encourage you to go to the SUNUP website. That's sunup.okstate.edu. Go under show links, and we'll have a link there to, I think, a really good brochure. It's called Calving Time Management for Beef Cows and Heifers. It's E-1006. Got a lot of information that can help cow-calf producers as they go through this calving season. Hey, we look forward to visiting with you again next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
Talking pecans now. Harvest is winding down and we traveled to Rogers County to see how it went. Like most days at Clark's Pecans in Collinsville, Oklahoma, Bill Clark stays busy running his sorter and buying and selling native and paper shell or improved varieties. But this year, business is a little slower than usual.
This is one of the shorter crops we've seen, but the highest price we have ever seen. So the farmers that could even get half production this year have done quite well.
We first met Bill 4 years ago at harvest time in his own native pecan grove. A great crop then, but this year, nothing.
But I had some neighbors that had probably half a crop or a third of a crop, but I was one of the unfortunate that didn't harvest anything whatsoever.
Rogers County Extension Educator John Hasse says overall, yields are lower in Oklahoma.
It's varied according to the region of the state. In our area, Rogers County, Tulsa, Osage, River Bottom area around here, it's way down.
The reason? No one thing is to blame. Pecans are wind pollinated and, like most crops, always at the mercy of Mother Nature.
The wind may not pollinate the trees as well, and then we have temperature inversions and variations and late frost, so there's a lot of factors that go into getting the pecan even started as a little nutlet. And then you have, problems throughout the season with insects, drought, which we had, we're still in one. So that really affected the output for this year.
The silver lining may just be the price.
If the price like this year is up around $2 for a pound for natives, and it's normally 80 cents a pound, then they're going to come out okay.
For more perspective, we caught up with Becky Carroll at the Cimarron Valley Research Station.
This past year's kind of been an off year for most pecan producers. Our native trees and then homeowner or yard trees didn't produce very much this year. And pecans kind of cycle on and off. They alternate bear. So they'll have a really large crop one year and then not much the next year. So this was kind of our off year. And then with some of the weather conditions, that also affected some of the crops. But in highly managed orchards, they had pretty decent crops this year and did pretty well. So it just takes a little more inputs on some of those managed orchards to get a better producing crop each year.
If someone is wanting to plant some trees for the first time, what kind of things should they keep in mind?
They need to take a look at their site and see if they have good soil. If it's in a really low area, sometimes we have problems with freeze. We want a really well-drained soil for pecans. Most people consider pecans growing in the river bottoms and they can tolerate wet soils, but actually they don't like to be in wet areas that long. So this is an upland site and they're doing great in this area. But if they're going to grow improved varieties, the larger pecans, they'll need to have access to good irrigation, plenty of water, and good quality water also. It's just a matter of where they want to go in the end, if they're going to wholesale their pecans or retail them, how they want to proceed with what they're planting and doing. So,
And kind of some of those investment questions,
right,
and how much they want
right,
to finance.
And depending on what they want to do is maybe depending on what type of pecan they want to plant. Smaller nuts are easier to grow and fill out without some of the extras. They don't have to have quite as much irrigation and things, whereas a large, big, improved pecan may take a lot more water and other fertilizer and other inputs to get it to grow and have high quality pecan.
How about for people who've maybe purchased a few acres of land and there's some native trees there and they want to manage those but not invest too much?
Well, the first thing to do if you bought land that has pecans is go out and kind of survey the area and see how many pecan trees are actually there. And most limiting factor on pecan production with native groves is usually that they're overcrowded. So the best thing to do is to go in and take out all the trees that aren't pecans. And then you can take a look at the spacing. So we want to have them spaced out where when you look up at the tops of the canopy of the tree, we want to have about 10 foot between canopies, and that's when they're fully leaved out. In the middle of summer, when you want to see about 50% shade on the floor, the orchard floor. So if you have more than that, you want to have plenty of sunshine because pecans need a lot of light to grow properly. So overcrowding is probably the most definite problem with natives.
Through Extension and OSU research, there's lots of materials that folks can access as well as an upcoming class. Tell us about that.
We have a pecan web page online where they can go and look at videos of people learning how to graft. There's fact sheets that detail everything from pest management to establishment to improving native groves, and so there's a lot of material available online. But we do also have a pecan management course. It's good for a refresher course for experienced growers, or it's great for brand new growers or people that are just considering planting an orchard. So we get to meet at the research station here once a month. The class begins the end of February 28th, and it's really neat because we get to see the crop progress through the whole season. And our last class is actually harvest.
Becky, thanks so much for your time today. And for more information on the pecan class and other materials available through Cooperative Extension, go to sunup.okstate.edu.
In FoodWise this week, we're talking about the use of phages in the food industry with Divya Gironi, a FAPSI food microbiologist. And I guess let's just start from the top, defining what a phage is for those of us who don't know.
Well, a phage, or more specifically a bacteriophage, is a virus actually, and it specifically targets or kills bacteria.
So it's something we'll hear more about in the weeks, months, years ahead?
Yeah, in the food industry specifically, the phages are gaining a lot of popularity, especially with foodborne pathogens, because if they are specifically targeting or killing certain bacteria, it's going to be helpful for the food industry to kill foodborne pathogens. So the phages we work with is E. coli phage, and if you have a phage that can kill E. coli in the food, then that's even better.
And then should we be concerned about the use of phages in our food, though? I mean, obviously it's something we're going to be learning more about, what the benefits are, but is there some concern there?
Well, a lot of people are concerned that it's a virus, right? So, we have virus in our food. Well, it's actually a virus, but it's harmless to humans, plants, and animals. So if it's a virus that only attacks bacteria, then it's only going to attack bacteria. There's no evidence of it harming humans. So you can use it with the animals, you can use it in the food applications at the processing level, or you can use it to feed the animals. So far from what I've learned, it's not harmful to humans at all.
And you have some examples here for us?
Yeah, basically I just wanted to show you what a phage kind of looks like. This is just a little solution, and so basically once we extract the phage or isolate the phage from the environment, this is what it looks like in the end, and this is how it's actually marketed in the industry. And these are I just wanted to show some pictures of phages. As you can see, there are different types of phages, anywhere from a small head and a small tail to a very small head and a very long tail. So this is basically just some of the phages we've isolated in the lab, and we're going to try to use it in the food industry.
Big picture, this is the evolution of food safety and addressing some of those concerns that we hear about in the news.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Divya, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Over the past few weeks, prices have been climbing higher. And Kim, do we still have the foot on the gas pedal?
Well, they backed off a little bit this week. You look at wheat prices, they're down about 15 cents. Still on a short run up pattern. On the long term, you got that downward pressure and that sideways pressure. Corn was down a nickel, that's just not much at all. Again, corn's got an up pattern going, or an uptrend. Soybeans down 20 cents. They've got a short-term uptrend going. All three of them were down. They're in the short run still going up, and I think in the midterm they're sideways patterns.
So what took the wind out of these sales?
I think this week we just didn't have the demand, that export demand that we'd had in the last few weeks to drive prices higher.
Now, speaking of exports, there's been some trade news that may impact agriculture.
Oh, on the TPP, President Trump took that off the table. get up front. I'm not an expert on that agreement. I haven't read the whole thing. I did scan through it. I noted that there's 12 countries. You got Australia, Canada, Japan, Mexico, Brunei, Chile, Malaysia, New Zealand, Peru, Singapore, and Vietnam. Of those countries, 4 of them are important for wheat and corn. You've got Japan and Mexico. They're the #1 and #2 buyers of U.S. wheat and buyer of U.S. corn. Of course, Australia and Canada are competitors. The others are buyers of the product.
So who is buying U.S. wheat if it's not them?
Well, if you look at say the top 8 importers of U.S. wheat, of course, Japan and Mexico, around 100 million bushels each. Japan a little more than Mexico. You got Philippines coming in about 80 million bushels, Nigeria at 60, the Republic of Korea at 40 million bushels, Taiwan at 37, Indonesia 22. European Union, that was kind of a surprise to me, about 30 million bushels, and China, depending on the year, will buy anywhere from 10 to 30 million bushels.
Now, in the past, you've talked about Egypt, but you didn't say Egypt in that run.
Well, Egypt is the #1 importer of wheat around the world. I think you look at Russia, Ukraine, they've pretty much taken over that market. They've got a logistics, shipping advantage. Plus, as we've talked about in the past, they're buying the market. They are the lowest price wheat. This week, Egypt tendered. They had 13 offers on the table from 13 different locations, including the U.S. Russia got that order. I think it was about $5.35 a bushel, and that's loaded on the vessel.
Now, is it a transportation issue or is it a wheat quality issue?
I think it's more of a transportation and price issue than it is quality issue. There's been some comment about the quality of the Russian wheat. I've read where they're loading out 12 protein wheat. I don't have any indication that their quality is any less than ours.
So Oklahoma wheat producers still need to produce the best crop we can, and someone will buy it.
That's exactly correct. You got to have quality to sell in this market.
Okay, thank you much. Kim Anderson, grain marketing specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
With the end of January quickly approaching, farmers and ranchers are starting to gear up for spring's fast pace. While we've had some cold this January, we've also had a good number of warm days. That is pushing our crops and pests. Mesonet alfalfa weevil heat units have hit the scouting trigger at Idabel, 150. Heat units will be collecting rapidly across the rest of the state in the days and weeks ahead. Another Mesonet heat unit advisor is for wheat first hollow stem. First hollow stem is the plant stage when continued grazing rapidly decreases grain yield. In the green, yellow, and orange map areas, we've already reached 576 heat units for wheat varieties in the early first hollow stem group. That is the trigger for checking early group varieties for first hollow stem. Middle group varieties have collected the same number of heat units but have a higher heat unit trigger. Soil moisture at the 10-inch depth was only showing a few drier locations on Wednesday: Eva, Oklahoma City North, Norman, and Chandler. It was a whole different picture at 24 inches. Dark brown, dry areas were scattered across the state. Here's Gary with more on the impact of dry soil conditions.
Thanks, Alan. Good morning, everyone. And Al is correct, though soil moisture problems at the deeper levels do indicate continued drought problems, more on the long-term level than the short-term level. And we did get that good storm a couple of weeks ago, which put down a lot of moisture across the state. But let's take a look at the drought monitor map and see what we have. Well, we still have a hodgepodge of colors all across the map, and that's really the indication that some places have received really good moisture, other places still wanting moisture. We still have that extreme D3 or the red colors on the map out across eastern Oklahoma And we still have pockets of D2, that severe drought in central and northwestern Oklahoma, and then moderate to abnormally dry conditions scattered throughout much of the rest of the state. The chances for precipitation as we go into the future look sort of dim right now. If we look at the next 7 days, of course, looks dry. If we look out from the end of the month through the first few days of February, we do see those indications of increased odds of below normal precipitation. And during late January and early February, that is really dry. If we go out to the spring season, now we're looking at the Climate Prediction Center maps for the March through May period. We do see for precipitation no real indications of above or below normal precipitation totals for those 3 months across Oklahoma, or for much of the country, in fact. But if we look at temperature, we do see a clear signal for warmer than normal temperatures for that March through May period across Oklahoma and the rest of the southern tier of the United States. And as we know in Oklahoma, if you're warmer than normal, that can lead to problems with drought if you don't get the required amount of moisture to overcome that extra heat. So we will await our next big storm. Probably sometime in February we'll get a good rain, and hopefully that will get us some more improvements on the drought monitor map, and we won't get too bad before then. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
Thanks so much for joining us this week. Remember, you can find us anytime online at sunup.okstate.edu, and also follow us on YouTube and social media. I'm Lyndall Stout. Have a great week, everyone. And remember, Oklahoma agriculture starts at sunup.